Hey there, Mr. Redder here. Welcome back to another episode of r/entitled People Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today. Karen expects me to dress differently because she's insecure. After that, am I the jerk for siding with a homewrecker? And after that, Karen rebranded gifts I bought my nephews as being from Santa. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen does not get to control what anyone else wears. But I want you to wear some skinny jeans for me, Reddit boy. Please don't ever do that again. So please smash that like button and subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Karen expects me to dress differently because she's insecure. Hello everyone. I, 19 female, have recently had a situation with my close friend, also 19 female, and it has had me conflicted on whether or not to compromise what I believe in order to maintain this 4-year-long friendship. My friend and I have always been super open and honest with each other when it comes to personal details, whether it be mental health or struggles we go through, and it's something I value and appreciate within our friendship. We have both been open and honest about having issues surrounding the way we view our bodies, and have always been big supporters of encouraging each other to embrace and love the way we look. However, recently this has seemed to change on her part. This shift all started when I went through my very first real heartbreak, where I came out of a long-term relationship. In dealing with this heartbreak, I have not only tried to work on my mental health, but physical as well. In doing so, over the last 3 months of hard work and discipline, I have started to see solid results in the way I look, including having a more toned and defined stomach, something I've always wanted to achieve. As I've seen these results, I became more confident in dressing in more revealing clothes, you could say, surrounding my midriff. As I've been dressing more like this, my friend has increasingly made little comments about reasons why I should change, and most of them didn't seem to make sense, whether it be the weather or location, etc. She has also started to criticize herself regarding her midriff more, to which I always make sure to reassure her that all bodies are beautiful and encourage her to embrace and love what she's got working for her. This kept happening for about a month until last week when she made a statement that caught me off guard. My friend informed me that the way I was dressing served as a trigger to other people and herself, and she does not want me to wear clothes that show my midriff around her because it makes her feel uncomfortable as well as others. This hurt me to hear, as I never do anything with ill intent, but also because it made me feel insecure about my body as well, as if I should be ashamed in some sense. After considering what she said, I informed her that I would not be changing the way I dress, and told her that telling someone their body is a trigger is wrong and damaging to my mental health. She called me selfish and said she would have thought I would be more understanding, but I'm not the friend she thought I was. I'm starting to wonder if I'm in the wrong and should just be covering up around her. So, am I the jerk for standing my ground and not changing the way I dress? Edit/update. I just want to thank everyone for their words of encouragement and support. I appreciate it all. I don't have a huge update so far, but said friend reached out wanting to meet up and talk. She did not clarify it from her side if it was about our last conversation. Considering all the advice I received and support I had by standing my ground, I've decided to leave a bit of distance between us for the time being. I sent her a message, and to sum it up, I let her know I understand body image can be a big struggle, and although I still want to support her on her self-love journey, the way she chose to address me and my body was not okay. I also addressed that since I am taking time to build up my mental health as well, I need to be surrounded by people who would rather build me up than tear me down for my accomplishments. I tried to be firm in the fact I would not be continuing on this friendship without an apology and proper change in her words and actions, as sorry can only go so far if change doesn't follow. I'm trying to be as understanding as possible because I know body image issues can play into a lot of delicate things that can be damaging to oneself, but I'm also aware that I am not a professional and cannot offer her the help that she might need to be seeking. I have not yet received a response from her end. Not the jerk. For goodness sake. You have nothing to feel bad about. A real friend should be happy for you, not make you feel bad about what you have achieved. Show that midriff off. I say that as a fat person. This reminds me of victim blaming in a way, as if the way we dress should affect others who can't control their own issues. I agree with this commenter. Wear what makes you feel good. It doesn't really matter what anyone else has to say. I also want to congratulate you on your goals. To me, this doesn't sound like a revenge body situation, but one where you actively took initiative to work on your mental and physical health to make you happy. That is the best reason in the world to make any changes for yourself. It's like victim creating. I don't know, but I see the similarities as well. Like, you're doing good and showing it off. and that makes me feel bad for not doing good? Like the kid that got an A on a test and was proud of it, and the kid who got a D feels bad. But it's not the kid with the A's fault. Definitely not the jerk. Definitely show off that midriff. And your friend really needs to work on some self-esteem stuff. She's the jerk for taking her insecurities out on you, but I also understand why she's doing it. I hope she gets some help and learns to love herself too. I hope that you're loving yourself as well. Congratulations on picking up something so life-changing and making yourself more disciplined. You should be proud of yourself. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her friend? Please let us know.
I need some new Live, Laugh, Love shirts, Reddit boy. I want to show my midriff off as well.
Am I the jerk for siding with a homewrecker? My sister, Annie, she's in her 30s, is obsessed with a girl, let's say Jane, she's in her 20s, that her husband cheated on her with in mid-2020. I don't know why. Jane's not the first or the last. She was one of the decent ones. Didn't realize he was married, broke it off when she found out, and sent the proof of his cheating to his wife. Somehow, he spun this as, "She's trying to break us up," and my sister fell for it. Which is stupid, because Jane already blocked them on everything. He's the one that basically stalked her for months after. Anyway, Annie's been stalking Jane's socials. Anytime Jane posts about something bad happening, Annie calls me up to gloat. Anytime she posts about anything good that happens, Annie starts crying about how it's not fair. In the last few months, Jane apparently got a high-paying new job, got engaged, and is pregnant. Annie had a full-on meltdown over it. It's all she ever wants to talk about. She'll call me at least twice a week with this crap and text me multiple times a day. She doesn't want advice, doesn't want to leave him, just wants to vent endlessly. My other sister is also tired of this, but my mom says we need to be gentle because it's hard for Annie. I just want her to stop. I tried sympathy, tough love, changing the subject, suggesting counseling. Nothing works. It's nonstop. Jane did this and Jane did that. I hit my boiling point this morning when she was going on about how Jane's fiance would cheat because she's too fat. She's pregnant. Then she said,
I don't care because I won and she lost. She had him for a week and I have him for a lifetime.
For some reason, that made me snap. I told Annie she won a slimy serial cheater who never supported her through illness or depression, never lifts a finger around the house, sulks about having to babysit his own kids, constantly makes mean jokes about her and criticizes her appearance harshly, even though he's below average in looks. I said something like, maybe you're obsessed with Jane's life because yours is a massive dumpster fire. Since then, I had to deactivate my socials because I'm getting nonstop hate from Annie, her friends, and extended family for being cruel. Apparently, I have no morals and condone cheating. None of them are going for the actual cheater though, just me for pointing out that he's a cheater. My other sister says that I wasn't wrong, but I was the jerk to say it so harshly, and that Annie is a victim too. I don't know, Reddit. Am I the jerk? Edit. Thanks for all the comments and awards and advice. Sorry I can't reply to everyone. I'll keep suggesting therapy to Annie, and I'll track down Jane's social and let her know what's up. If anything happens from that, I'll let you know. Some people have suggested I show this thread to Annie, but I know she'll totally explode if she thinks I shared her private stuff online, even anonymously. Not the jerk. Your sister is obsessed with someone who her husband cheated on her with, broke up with said husband once she found out about him still being married, and has since moved on. What your sister needs is professional help. OP. I wish she would agree to therapy, but she won't. She doesn't think she needs it. Might I suggest you contact Jane and tell her to put her accounts on private because of Annie stalking her. It's borderline creepy, and she's upset about this baby that isn't even born yet. OP. Do you think she'll find it kind of sus if I reach out to her out of nowhere to tell her my sister is stalking her? She might, but she also might appreciate it. 50-50 chance. Well, who do you think is the jerk? OP or her sister? Please let us know.
We get what we settle for in life. Never settle for a cheater.
Karen rebranded gifts I bought my nephews as being from Santa. This happened during Christmas last year. My older sister has always been a handful, one might say. She would generally act entitled, but then when someone makes her back off, she goes back to acting normal for a while before starting it all over. She got married a decade ago and has 2 young sons that are 5 and 6. And every year she makes sure there's something extra under the tree from Santa for them, which we're all fine with. But Christmas of 2021, she did something that blew my mind. The Christmas Eve gatherings with the whole family are usually held at my grandparents' house. That way, the individual families have their personal celebrations on Christmas Day with their own kids, or with families of significant others or spouses. Last year, I was worried I might not make it to the Christmas Eve party as I was away on some personal matters. So I shipped the presents I got for relatives pre-wrapped in a large box to my grandparents' house just in case. But I did manage to make it home the day before Christmas Eve by driving through several states. Everything went well, and we had the big dinner with both turkey and ham. I'm a real sucker for the turkey. Then came time for gifts. We draw strings for who passes around the gifts among the younger members of the family, and my 15-year-old cousin pulled the short straw. Everything was good until the presents I got from my nephews were passed to him. All the presents I sent in advance used the same wrapping paper, so it was pretty obvious after a while which ones were from me. But when the two boys got the ones I gave them, my sister pointed to new name labels on them both that were clearly pasted over the ones I'd put on them and exclaimed that they were from Santa, which made the two boys eagerly open them and shout with glee. I was pretty angry, and my sister saw it on my face. She pulled me aside to talk, and I asked her what the heck she thought she was doing. She beat around the bush for a moment and said that since she thought I wasn't going to make it to the Christmas that year, that it would have been better if the kids thought the gifts were from Santa. I was furious and yelled at her. That caught the attention of my grandmother, who also knew what happened. She begged me to keep quiet about the false Santa gifts, but I blew up over her wanting to rug sweep, and that attracted half the family into the kitchen to ask what all the yelling was about. My sister tried to say something, but I spoke over her that she had rebranded the gifts I got from my nephews as being from Santa. My grandfather looked at her and said, "Is this true?" My sister looked emotional and then did what she usually did when called out on something this bad. She started sobbing like a little kid and crouched down on the floor to have a pity party. Between sobs, she kept trying to defend herself, but the only one that was buying into her act was my grandmother, who only made more excuses like what my sister said. They thought I wasn't going to be there. It was for the sake of the kids, etc. My grandfather was unfazed though, and he, along with several other members of the family, said that she needed to make it up to me for this, because that means the boys technically got nothing from me that they know of when I clearly gave them nice expensive gifts that now they won't even know came from me just because of what my sister did. My grandmother finally backed off and briefly sided with the rest of us before going out to the living room to watch the kids. I then had an idea and said that I will give each of my nephews $50 bills from my wallet, and I expect to be paid that money back and get paid back for the gifts that were no longer for me because my sister had commandeered them. My brother-in-law sighed and agreed, then dragged my sister to the garage to have words with her. I gave my nephews each a crisp $50 bill and told them to buy whatever they like with it. My sister spent the rest of the evening almost silent. No more tears or anything, just silent. She may as well have been a mannequin on display or something. And before I left, my brother-in-law promised my sister will personally pay me back. I thought I was going to have to wait a good while to get the money back, but yesterday my sister and brother-in-law came knocking at my door, and my sister meekly handed me an envelope with $200 in it and apologized to me. She started to make more excuses for what she did when brother-in-law told her to just stop, because what she did was a crummy thing and she knows there was no excuse for it. So she just apologized one more time and walked back to their car, loudly sniffling in a tissue. My brother-in-law told me the $200 came out of my sister's account, and that was basically her fun money for this month, and maybe having a leaner month will teach her a lesson. Probably not though. Edit. Sorry I forgot to include my gender in this. I'm a guy in my early 30s. Good for you, and good for brother-in-law to take it out of her fun money. OP. It should teach her not to do something like rebranding gifts from someone else again, but I doubt she'll change. She used to take credit for stuff she didn't do a lot, which is why all of the family knows that she's like this. Did your brother-in-law know what he was signing up for when he married your sister? Because it sounds like he has to parent her along with 2 actual kids. It seems like she likely doesn't have a job, so her contribution is what exactly? Being a crappy person and embarrassing herself and her spouse in front of others? It's also interesting how your brother-in-law says it was taken out of her fun money like she's a kid who receives a chore allowance from their parents. Is he sick of her crap? I'm always curious and baffled why seemingly responsible, mature adults get involved with and marry adult kids. OP. My sister put up quite the act when she was dating brother-in-law before they got married. About a year after they were married, she let her real self out, and as soon as she was pregnant, she quit her job and just sponged off her husband. Thankfully, the lot of us convinced him to get a signed prenup before marrying my sister, and that mostly keeps my sister in line, because with that prenup, if he ever divorces her, she'd be done out of everything but child support, and she knows it. I know he'd leave her in a heartbeat if she ever had an affair, as he openly says that cheating is a deal breaker. After the incident with the credit cards, brother-in-law watches their credit a lot, so she can't open a new one without him knowing. The marriage is already on thin ice, and we really don't know how long it'll last. Brother-in-law seems to still love my sister in some way, but he doesn't give her everything she wants, which she initially tried to do. The past decade, he's been gradually unentitling her. She went crying to everyone at one point that he was being financially controlling towards her by not letting her use credit cards in his name. But we all sided with brother-in-law on that, even my enabling grandmother. Brother-in-law has also made it clear that when the kids are old enough to not need to be babysat anymore, my sister will be made to get a job again. And he's even been mulling over the idea of finding my sister a job she can do from home and watch the kids, which I think is a good idea. If you want the promotion, you'll have to be willing to work without the benefits. The entry-level position at my old company is a revolving door. The pay is low, the work is unrewarding, and the expectations are unattainably high for the vast majority of the staff. The average time in that position is 6 months. This is by design. It's a position that requires minimal training, and there are plenty of applicants willing to work for minimum wage. It's actually a really great entry into the field and uses all of the industry standard practices and tools. Most people use it as a launching point for a successful career and move on to a higher paying job after half a year. One of the cool things about the position is that they offer a great perk for paid time off. You get 1 hour of paid time off for every 30 hours worked. There are no caps on accrual or limits on usage. It's a great way to attract recent college grads to the position. They feel like they're getting a great benefit, and the company knows that they'll be gone in 6 months anyways, so they don't even end up paying for a lot of time off. I took the job fully expecting to be gone within a year, but I ended up thriving in the position. My bosses were impressed, and they offered me raises if I would stay with the company and increase my scope of responsibility. Every time I started to think that my career was stagnating, they would make staying in that position worth it. After a couple of years, I had learned enough that I felt confident in my ability to take on a mid-level role, so I asked for consideration. The mid-level role comes with benefits and a salary, along with a title that would look great on my resume. The drawback was that this position has a cap of 4 days of paid time off usage per year. Still, it would be a great stepping stone in my career, so I was eager to move up. The only problem is that the mid-level position hires from a pool of candidates with an MBA, which I don't have. My boss told me they would love to have me work on that team and would give me a good raise, but I wouldn't get the title, salary, or benefits without an MBA. Works for me. I know how to write a resume and present myself in an interview, so the title is meaningless as long as I'm doing the work of that role. The pay increase would be great leverage while I searched for a new job. And I don't need the benefits. I don't need to be on the company's healthcare plan because I get free healthcare from the VA. I don't need their 401k plan because my wife's company has a better one. I don't need their student loan repayment benefits because the GI Bill paid for my degree. So I took the promotion, but I kept my original title. I don't think they realized this means I would also keep my original PTO structure, and at the new pay rate, giving me that much PTO would be kind of expensive. After about a year in that position, I was ready to move on. I told my boss I wanted to use all of my available paid time off, and he said, "No problem, enjoy your 4 days." No, you don't understand. I'm still an entry-level job title. I'm off for the next 6 weeks. I actually did take a month off and had a great time. Then I started job hunting full-time and quickly got offers. When my paid time off was over, I came back to the company with my 2 weeks notice. The timing was bad for the company because they didn't plan on spending that much on paid time off that quarter. I hope they've revisited their decision to tell me that I was capable of doing a job, but not qualified for the benefits of that job. Am I the jerk for refusing to watch my sister's stepkid and exposing her lies to her husband? I'm female 21. My sister, Jess, who's 30, is married and has a 5-year-old stepson. Her husband works full-time and she's a stay-at-home mom. Every Monday, she'd call my mom at 9 a.m. to get her to go over to her house and watch her stepkid for a few hours. I live at home with my parents, and so I've noticed this routine for weeks now. Last week, Mom went out of town to visit some relatives, and yesterday, Monday, at 9 a.m., my sister called me asking me to come over to watch her stepkid for a few hours because she had an important thing to do. I said no because I had to go study, and also she does this every Monday, so clearly it wasn't important or urgent, but she insisted that it was. I told her sorry, but no. She ended the call then, and I went to the university. Hours later, I got a call from my brother-in-law asking me where my sister was. I said I had no idea. He proceeded to tell me he just came home at 1 p.m. and found his son by himself at the house. I was in shock that my sister left her stepkid by himself so she could go who knows where. I told him about the conversation I had with her, and he got angry. In the evening, my sister came over and started making a scene by yelling at me for bailing on her after she sent me a text message telling me she was already out of the house to force me to come watch her kid. I didn't see the Facebook message till she told me, but she said I did this deliberately and also exposed her to her husband because she told him she'd be at home with the kid. Not just that, but I also told her husband that mom comes over every Monday morning to watch the kid for a few hours, which caused a huge fight between him and my sister. She yelled that I was petty and selfish and just stirred crap and caused issues in her marriage by tattling to her husband. I couldn't keep arguing. I went into my room and started playing music. My dad and the others said I was to blame for not helping my sister and now being the reason she and her husband are in conflict. Am I the jerk? Okay guys, so I saw a few questions asked multiple times, so I'll just put the answers out here for all to see. Edit. Brother-in-law is always at work when my sister calls my mom to come over and watch her kid. Most of you guys are asking where my sister goes every Monday, and I even saw someone mention that I was the jerk for not finding out. But I don't know anything. I have no idea what's going on with my sister, and I thought it was none of my business. Not the jerk. This is bonkers. She left a 5-year-old alone, counting on a messaging app on a social network and your sense of concern for her kid to make sure her responsibilities were covered. I don't think going out one morning a week is a problem for a stay-at-home mom, but lying to your husband about it and forcing your relatives to cover it? No, sir. Not the jerk. I hope her husband questions her on what exactly she does and where she goes when she's supposed to be watching the kid. That's really sketchy. It sounds like she just wants to spend some quality time with her boyfriend. Bag of nails. I'm a dry liner, which means I do a lot of moving around for my trade, as most of the work I do is towards the end of most projects. This means that I spend a lot of my time renting flats and houses for only short periods of time, usually about 6 months at a time. This has meant that I have had to deal with a lot of landlords over the years, both good and bad. When it comes to the bad landlords, I will normally just walk away and get on with moving to the next job and take the loss of my deposit and never use them again if I'm working in that area in the future. But this particular landlord got my back up so badly, I was not just going to just walk away. I had managed to get myself into a big job in London working on the new Wembley Stadium, so decided I would look for a house to rent rather than a flat, as I knew I was going to be working on it for a while, and found a reasonably priced, for London, house to rent from a private landlord in a local newspaper. I gave him a call and met with him later that day. He seemed okay, went to view the house, paid him the deposit, cash, and moved in that weekend. I ended up staying in the house for nearly a year with no problems. Always had the rent paid into his bank account on time and fixed any small problems that might crop up with the house myself without bothering him. Up to the time when it came to moving out, only ever spoke to him twice on the phone after there was an issue with the heater that I was unable to fix myself, and he sent an engineer around the next day to fix the boiler. Come the time that the job was finishing, I went round to the pawn shop that he owned to give him notice that I would be moving out the following month and to let him know I was happy for him to come around to inspect the house before I moved out so that I could get my deposit back from him when I returned the keys. He never came around while I was in to inspect the house, and so I assumed that he had come around and let himself in while I was at work, as I had told him that I had no issue with him doing that if need be. So on the day I moved out, I went around the shop and handed him his keys back and asked for my deposit. His response was, "What deposit?" "The month's rent that I gave you in advance of moving in as a security deposit," I replied. He then told me he was keeping that to cover the cost of repairing damages caused while I was living in the property. I responded, "What damages?" With the bits of work and decorating I had done in the house, it was in better state now than it was when I had moved into it. His response was to step forward and get right up into my face and say, "You're not getting it back, so buzz off." And he then gave me a shove, which needed me to take 3 steps back to avoid falling down. Now, I'm what you would class an average size and build, and this landlord had a good 4 inches on me, height-wise, and obviously spent some time down at the gym, and the wise move would be to back away and cut my losses. Now, before I was a builder, I was a member of the British Army in a regiment called the Royal Green Jackets, and they had trained us the best way to proceed when confronted with aggression is to meet it swiftly and with much more violent aggression. So without even thinking about it, I started to move forward with the full intention of dropping this guy quickly and painfully. After the first step though, a thought popped into my head like a bolt from the blue. So I stopped and took a moment to examine the idea from a few different angles, said, "Okay, bye," to my now ex-landlord and walked out of his shop. What the landlord did not know was that I had a spare back door key cut when I lived in the house, which I had stashed in my van in case I ever lost the keys so I could still get back in. So later that evening, I let myself back in and decided to stop for one last night before leaving in the morning for my next job, which was in Scotland. I spent the last night in the house carefully removing every bit of wood in there. I took down doors, removed skirting boards, banisters, and floorboards, being extremely careful not to damage anything. I also completely dismantled all the kitchen units, took up the wood flooring and carpets. I then left everything in neat piles in each room. I got in my van the next morning and was preparing to start my drive when I decided I wanted to rub a little bit of more salt into my ex-landlord's wounds. So I stopped at his shop on the way out of London, got a spare hammer, screwdriver, bag of nails, and a box of wood screws out of the back of my van and went into the shop. My ex-landlord was not there, probably for the best. So I left the tools with his confused-looking assistant and told her to tell her boss, "You will be needing these," and left for my drive north. I had my phone switched off while driving, and a few hours later, while I was having a bite to eat at a service station up by Nottingham, I decided to switch it back on and was greeted by a string of text messages and some very colorful voice messages, which left me chuckling to myself. Edit. I did reply to one of the texts he sent me. The text was, "Do you think you're funny, leaving me nails and screws?" I responded, "Yes." Am I the jerk for telling my roommate her mom can't stay at our apartment? Me, 25 female, and my roommate, 25 female, have been living together for almost 6 months now. We're both nurses, work in different hospitals, and have been friends since nursing school 5-ish years ago. For some background, I have 2 sisters and I'm the youngest in our family. My mom divorced my dad and left our family when I was 2 years old. My dad is amazing and became the best single dad in the world. Was both dad and mom for his 3 daughters. He's literally my best friend. Anyway, my dad, 67 male, lives 2 hours away now. In October, I had a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday off in a row. I missed my dad a lot and told him I was coming home to see him. He said he'd love to see me, but asked if he could come to where I live since he had some friends and wanted to see as well. I said of course. I told my roommate he was coming to visit for the weekend, and she said, "Cool, is he staying at the hotel?" Which is a hotel close by. I said, "Well, I thought he could stay here. He can stay in my room, and I'll sleep on an air mattress on my floor." She basically said she thought he should stay in a hotel. I figured she didn't want the apartment cramped. We've never had guests stay for that long, and my dad said he didn't mind. So the 2 of us stayed at the hotel for the weekend. Fast forward to now. My friend informed me that her mom is coming to visit and is planning on staying a week at our apartment. I was confused and said, "She's not staying at the hotel?" And she pretty much said what I told her about how I planned for my dad to stay. I called her out on it and said that my dad was only coming for 2 nights and she didn't want him here, and that her mom is staying for a week. She told me that having my dad stay and having her mom stay are completely different because she's a woman and he was a man. I got really upset with her statement. My dad has always been so nice and welcoming to her. He and I will meet halfway for dinner once a month, and my roommate has gone with us on several occasions. I got really upset with my roommate and told her that I didn't want her mom to stay at our apartment and she needed to stay at the hotel like my dad had to do. My roommate is now mad at me, but I feel like I'm justified in being upset at the double standards. Am I the jerk? Edit 1. We've both had male guests come and stay before. We've always been respectful and let each other know when they were staying over. That's never been an issue. Edit 2. When she said no to my dad staying, she never mentioned it was because he was a man. She said that our apartment would be cramped and that she had to work on some of those days and had to go to sleep early and wake up early. Only mentioned it was because he was a male when I called her out on it when she told me her mom was staying. Thanks so much for everyone's input. Not the jerk. If the rule is no air mattress campouts, then no air mattress campouts. Mom can stay in a hotel. Demote me for daring to take professional obligations seriously? Are you sure about that? I had been working contentedly for a local clinic in administrative capacity. I was hired on as a medical biller originally, but over time my duties expanded into more information management and upper-level administration, and everyone from the CEO to the most junior employee knew I was good at my job. I didn't brag, but my work spoke for me. One of the certifying organization's motto for billers is upholding a higher standard, and I was doing my best to abide by it. Things were perking along, and then the clinic merged with a larger group of clinics, and they had a centralized billing office. I was on site more often than not and knew clinic operations backwards and forwards as I was functioning as the de facto manager. As the merger took effect, I realized that I did not mix with the central office at all. They were rude and cliquey, and apparently it was known, but nothing was ever done about it. When I refused an order to commit a fraudulent act, the next day I was out all morning for an important doctor's appointment. I came back to a new set of job duties, all front desk. This was during lockdown, and it was institutional knowledge. I work front desk during flu season. I get sick with the flu 2 to 3 days later, no matter how many precautions I take. I was beyond peeved because it was effectively a demotion, and when I spoke with the manager, she said flat out, "You are now front desk and bound by the expectations of such." Okay, demote me for acting honorably and placing me in harm's way? That can't go unanswered. I was beyond furious, but I had a lot of institutional knowledge and a lot of unofficial duties. If they were going to put me on front desk and be bound by that set of expectations, then I was going to give them a master's class on work to rule. This change in position was not communicated to the clinic manager, and when I told him, he said, "What are they thinking?" But he didn't have enough work for me as a front desk person, so I spent my days job searching on the clock. Not something I would recommend, but it was either that or be bored out of my skull all day long. But every time I was asked a billing question, I said, "I'm not the biller. You need to take it up with the central billing office." After a few weeks, central billing office caught on as I was adding more work back onto them and tried to give me a few tasks back. I used a customer service rule to argue against it, and they had to admit I had a point. When the original CEO found out what was going on, he called it a waste. I suspect words were said, and I got a larger portion of my job back in an hour. So not only did I give them a well-deserved education on why one does not mess with a good employee, and rumor is they still haven't learned or don't care to learn, but I also got paid to job hunt for my next position.
Support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a shout out in our next video.
Or come watch this video next. You won't believe what Karen does in that one.